Chapter 40. The Zacchinians began their expedition, while the great battle of Winnefall was hotly raging. When the Zacchinian leadership saw they were losing, Theophilus brought up the idea of crossing the Southern Ocean. He reasoned that since Amaland men and women had left their nation with old and little behind, Amaland was defenseless at the back. Zacchinians sent out men as the Winnefall battle was ending. Attention of the world was then totally engaged. They departed regularly during nights at South End. They were not noticed by either weavers or Sadowin. When some landmen noticed an unusual reduction of the Zacchinians, they were not wrong, but the truth had remained unknown. Journey across Southern Ocean was, as dangerous as it was interesting, the largest ocean contained both bad and good things. When the first troops of Expedition Force left Zacquinia at night, they traveled the whole night time into the mid-ocean, till morning. There were no signs of storm until next 10 days at noon, when gentle sea breeze changed into strong winds. Water forces went on. They were led by the sea lions who acted as pathfinders on the way. But catfishes had to take over leadership when winds were increasing. They were better in maneuvering the rough and high waves. Situation became increasingly stormy as they went. Journey went days and nights, for over a month before they met tempests by second month. When tempest reached its heights, there were clouds, rains, lightning, and thunder. The winds became very rough and lifted towers of water. High waves broke and tumbled, clashing against one another, with the most violent wild rage that killed many of the soldiers. Tempest destroyed most of their provisions and equipment. They lost weapons, as well as missed their way. They entered mid-waters. It was surprisingly very calm. Water varied from place to place on the way. At one point it was very cold with icebergs of mountain heights. Yet they met zones with steaming water and zones mildly warm. They also saw areas of colorful water. One area smelt different from another. There are places in the water that seemed to glitter under the sunlight. They saw blue oceans that spread lovely dancing waves at noon. There were places ripped as gold and after turned to reddening horizon. Some were so dark while evening sun slowly went down. Some reflected red under the face of cool nightfall. Night-black waters were lit by moonshine. There were muddy waters and those clean and clear, foaming white. They discovered uninhabited islands of shapes, size, length, and width. There were swampy and sandy with wild flowers and fresh fruits. Great rocks which were standing huge out of sea against flushing waves. Ridges of rocks which lay with their backs above water, and very deep seabeds and other shallow places. They entered the southmost sea, a world of ice. Swordfishes led them, cutting paths through glacial. There was extreme cold that killed many of the troops. They went northeast diagonal direction, enduring harsh periods. There were yet other storms that led into another peak of tempest. When sea became steady, Zacquinians saw the landforms one morning. They confirmed it as Amaland, and it was not wrong from their map. Next night they entered the mainland they had seen. That was at Amaland's southwest coast through Artigon's delta. Their plans of Amaland nocturnal conquest started immediately. With well-detailed maps, Zacquinians began to spread. They hid themselves in Artigon water for 2 days. They besieged most of the Amaland big cities. All came out of water at once into action. Sudden attacks by Zacquinians in many cities took place the same time as was planned. All the water forces came on land at night armed. They started firing missiles, guns, and other hand bombs. They killed unarmed old little children and wounded many others. Amaland's homes were on fire as invaders went callously destroying. Zacquinians met no opposition as they conquered. Amaland, old men and women at home were so surprised. Civilians were shocked into a state of general weakness and confusion. They could but only make effort to gather frightened children and save own lives by escaping into near bushes around. Some Amalands that night did not even understand what was happening till later, in the next day, When night cleared and the early day came, Amalan citizens saw the foreigners. Land citizens have fallen into enemy hands. Zaquinians were wearing camouflaged clothes, looking tough, behaving so rough and very cruel. They took pleasure in destruction. Old landmen tried to be calm, though they had hidden fears in their minds. Old women and pregnant females were emotional. Little children were still asking innocent questions. Invaders were merciless with land-handicapped ex-soldiers. They killed any of them they met while spreading everywhere. Zaquinians were also setting wildfires all over the conquered country.